So this is the match between Mute and Echeverry in Hangzhou in China. Now this is actually a new format of video that I'm experimenting with for YouTube, and this is actually member trading. So this member is trading £10 a point, reasonably new member, joined about 2 months ago. And the idea is that we're going to run through some trading vids, live trades, and I'm going to sort of critique, provide some constructive feedback on the trading that he does, to not just help that member, but also help other members. Now this was, so he's just going to play some trades here, which of course I did. Now this was a Platinum Traders selection. He is a member of Platinum Traders. So yeah, so he's just putting one point on the back side and the lay side. So yeah, this is a Platinum Traders selection, had very high potential for a trade. If I think he probably is going to have a look at the stats. I guess he is, but I'll run through the stats as well from that first set analysis. Yes, he is, but I'll run through my own stats just to run through this first set analysis. So as I said, this was a very high potential match selection that I published in my Platinum Traders group, and between Mute and Echeverry. Now when I did actually first publish it, the odds were a lot closer to evens, but as we got closer to the match, Echeverry was coming out as the strong favourites. So let's have a look at what happened in this first set. So it's a decent first set performance from both players. Just the one break gave Echeverry this first set. A couple of break points there. But on the whole, from Mute, solid serving, one break point on his first service game, solid second hold. Obviously broken on his third, but then on his fourth, he did get a break point in the previous match, but a solid service hold in his fourth service game. So everything looking fine on the points scored. Stats-wise, one ace, one double fault, first serve percentage 59%, a little bit on the low side, but not bad at all. Very good first service points won, 77%, and not bad at all, 56%. Second service points won, which equates to 5 out of 9. Break points saved, 67%, which is a strong stat. Now, of course, we don't want to see our player having too many break points to save, but it is a positive and shows a lot of resilience when they do actually save these break points. So winners versus unforced errors aren't displayed here. I traded this myself, and the winners versus unforced errors were spot on. Perhaps we'll go back to his video and see if he does display those. But overall, total points won, 43%, slightly on the low side, but well above the 40% threshold. So it's all looking good to back Mute in the second set, which of course this member did in the second set. So let's go back to the video. So we just take a look at the Betfair charts here. First of all, Mute. So this is the price of 2.2, drifted up to 5. You can see where that first break took place when it drifted up to 4. Echeverry, he actually started a bit below 1.9, it's about 1.75. And the price is shortened down to 1.25. So very mechanical pricing here, which is pretty, well, we predict those prices. If there's nothing sort of really untoward or any major alarm bells, then this mechanical pricing will be very predictable. So it's a nice pricing scenario for this strategy in the second set. So with Mute just taking that first game of the second set, it's time to obviously lock in some profit, reduce the liability down. There was decent profit showing here. Now usually you'd be looking for around about, or a minimum of 10% on your total stakes entered. This was actually 20%. We've got a price movement of 125 up to 1.32. And on Mute, it was down from 5 to 4.1. So some decent profit locked in just purely on this service hold. So leaving a little bit of the money in the market to build it up on the service games. Some decent profit showing there already. So that is 20% profit, obviously on your total stake, paying £10 a stake, 2 points, £10 a point, 2 points entered, £4, 20%. Now it must be noted that there is no visual on this. I'd always recommend having a visual, and you'll see particularly the importance of this as we progress through this second set. Apparently, for whatever reason, he couldn't get a visual. It wasn't showing on Betfair. Couldn't access Bet365. I always recommend using Bet365 as a visual. Usually Betfair will show the matches, but if they're not, more often than not, Bet365 will be showing them. It's always nice to have a visual so that you can see exactly what's going on in the match. You know, whether a player is looking particularly tired, or whether they're potentially looking injured, which of course is what transpired in this one. So this is where the break came. So Etcheverry was broken in this first service game of the second set. Now, there weren't any sort of visual signs of an injury or any problems at this stage. And to be honest, you've always got to be cautious, even if a player looks like they've picked up an injury. You know, in some cases, I'm going to sound a bit skeptical here, but certainly in some cases, you know, they may sort of put it on a bit, you know, possibly playing games with the opponent. So unless their play is really being affected, standard play did drop in this first service game, but unless they're really showing, you know, dire signs of an injury, take it with a pinch of salt. However, just do obviously bear in mind that the injury may be for real. So after the break on Etcheverry, Mute was topped up with another point, and this is where he's just taking the second service game, confirming the break. So the profits showing nicely there. Remember, this is just £10 a point, so at £8 profit, 40-30. Wasn't the most straightforward of service holds in this confirmation of break, but he did take this. So we'll just wait for this to play out. Again, and as you can see from the pricing, there were no sort of real massive changes in the pricing suggesting that there were any problems with Etcheverry. Let's have a look at the price there. See, there's still a fair bit of scope before we get back to pre-match pricing. So some money left in the market. So it's going to reduce some liability here on Mute to lock that in. You see Fairbot there predicts the stake that would be kind of a sensible sort of stake to balance up sort of risk versus reward. But of course, we're sticking to the strategy here. So he's just reduced it by half a point there just to lock in some profit, secure that profit a bit more. Now this is where it starts to turn interesting. Now we can't obviously see it on this video, but Etcheverry goes off court. It looked like just for a sort of comfort break, but it was off for quite some period of time. Now you see the price is actually dropping quite quickly there. We were at 2.4, we're now at 2.28. And again, at this stage, nothing seems sort of untoward, but this is when you need to have a visual of the match to see what's going on. If there's sort of chatter between the coaches, suggesting that perhaps a player is thinking about retiring, but keep an eye on the pricing, how it is now rapidly dropping. Now, bearing in mind on Mute, the pre-match pricing was around 2.20. He has just confirmed the break. On confirmation of the break, we only got 2.40, but it is rapidly shortening now. So, you've got to start thinking, right, what's going on here? Now, obviously, again, with a visual, you've got a good indication of what's going on. We haven't got a visual here. And there was no suggestion of a medical timeout on flash scores. This is obviously an alarm bell to be aware of. Down to 2.0 now, and of course you can see the profit going up. So just have a look at flash scores there. No suggestion of a medical timeout. But of course, it's unusual to have, to go off court at this stage in the second set. So that on its own is something to be aware of as quite unusual. Down to 1.83, 1.78. Now just look at how these prices rapidly drop. How the price shortens on Mute. So you've got to immediately think, something's going on. And this is where there potentially could be a battle of fear and greed in your mind. Okay, so if you look at Mute, the profit on Mute is £31.90. Downside on Etcheverry is £7.20. Your profit showing is £16. So that's 1.5 points profit at the moment. So it's a toss-up between, do you take that money or do you wait and take the gamble on Etcheverry retiring? Bearing in mind, you don't know whether Etcheverry is actually definitely going to retire. So, what would you do in this situation? 1.55, the profit's going up, £18 profit now, so we're almost at 2 points profit with the potential of 3 points profit. Now, in other matches where you've got much more money in the market, this profit could be a lot higher. You could be sat at 2 points profit, but if the player retires, you could be looking at 5, 6 points profit. Okay, so this is a very interesting exercise with fear and greed. In this situation, and this member actually did pretty much at the same point as I did. You're weighing up. You've got 2 points profit here, sat there. Etcheverry retires, you'll have 3 points profit, but you don't know for sure that Etcheverry is going to retire. So what do you do? Now I hedged out at 2 points profit, and obviously I do know in advance that he did. I'm going to put a little spoiler in here. Let's just see at what point he did get out of the market. Now bearing in mind at the moment, Etcheverry hasn't come back onto the court, and the market is still, the prices are still shortening on Mute. And of course, this member hasn't got a visual, so he doesn't actually know that Etcheverry is off court. There's no sign. There we go. He's taken it at which price? 1.48. So although you can't see what's happening, you can get a very good idea with the pricing that the market perhaps feels that Etcheverry may retire, but it's certainly not a given. If it was very obvious that Etcheverry was going to retire, these prices would rapidly shorten, and you'd have to get in there very quickly if you wanted to grab that. But if they do rapidly shorten like that, and it's favouring you, then my advice is to hang on in there. However, when they're around sort of 148, 150, that the market's not 100% confident in Etcheverry retiring. And in actual fact, Etcheverry did come back onto court, and he did start his second service game. of the second set. Now, he did retire at love 30. However, if you'd sort of hung into the market and not taken your money out, he could have easily, he was obviously well enough to come back and start that second service game. Had he suddenly picked up and he was sort of putting it on a bit, then of course you not only would have lost out on that profit, but you potentially could have come away with a loss. So very interesting, something to really think about in terms of your fear and greed. Now in this situation, it was just another 1 point profit that you could potentially had. However, the real test comes, as I said, if you've got 2 point profits sat there, but if the opponent retires, you could potentially get 5 or 6 points profit. That's when the real test in fear and greed comes. But essentially, unless it's a real given and there's money on the table, my advice is to take that money. So, a very interesting match here. Now, these situations do occur from time to time. They're not often in your favour. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. But when they are, it's obviously a nice little bonus. But yeah, an interesting match to sort of discuss and critique. Now, let me know if this sort of format, I know there wasn't obviously much trading to discuss. The main point was around this retirement, which is a key lesson in itself. But let me know if you like more videos with the sort of member trading and critiquing, sort of talking over them. Let me know in the comments. Now, if you would like to begin your journey into tennis trading, you can, of course, do at protennistrader.teachable.com, where I offer the full package to get you up and running as a professional tennis trader. You can start off with my free video course, a free introduction into tennis trading. If you would like to join the complete one, that provides absolutely everything you need and also includes a month of platinum traders. Now, I am also a Forex trader and I offer the one Forex strategy on my website. And of course, please do follow me on YouTube, Pro Tennis Trader, where you can find loads of trading videos, in-play analysis, trading psychology, and a lot more. Until the next time, good luck with your trading, and I'll speak to you soon.